There's a tax you've been paying for years that nobody told you about. It's not on your W-2. It's not on a government form. You can't see it on your bank statement, but it's quietly costing you the equivalent of about 13 IQ points, permanently. Every single day you're broke. That's not a metaphor. That's an actual research finding from Princeton and Harvard. Two researchers, economist Sendhil Mullainathan and psychologist Eldar Shafir, set out to figure out why financial decisions made under scarcity often look so irrational from the outside. Their answer was unsettling. They discovered that the simple state of not having enough money reduces effective cognitive function by about the same amount as losing a full night of sleep. As long as you're financially stressed, your brain is operating at a discount. And here's what makes this devastating. The decisions you make while paying this tax are the exact decisions that determine whether you escape it. You're being asked to think your way out of being broke with a brain that's running at 80% because you're broke. It's the most efficient trap ever designed, but there's a number where the tax stops. Not $1 million, not 6 figures, not even close. The number is around $20,000, and once you cross it, something almost biological happens. Your brain comes back online. Your decisions start getting better. Opportunities you couldn't even see before suddenly become obvious. And the math, finally, starts working in your direction. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly how the brain tax works, why $20,000 specifically is the threshold that ends it, and the 5 mistakes that keep most people from ever getting there. I'm Jack. I cover the kind of money psychology that doesn't make it into most personal finance content. The stuff that's actually research-backed instead of motivationally invented. Hit subscribe if you want one of these every week. Section 1. What the brain tax actually is. Let me explain how Mullainathan and Shafir's research actually worked, because once you understand the mechanism, you'll see it operating in your own life. They studied sugarcane farmers in India. These farmers earn most of their annual income in a single payment, at harvest, which means they spend several months each year in financial scarcity and several months in financial comfort. Same people, same brains, same skills. The only thing that changes is whether they have money. The researchers tested cognitive performance during both periods. The result was striking. Before harvest, when the farmers were broke, their performance on standardized cognitive tests dropped roughly 13 IQ points. After harvest, when they had money, the points came back. Same farmer, sometimes 13 points dumber, depending entirely on whether they had cash. Now, the farmers weren't actually less intelligent. Their intelligence wasn't gone. It was being occupied. Mullainathan and Shafir called this cognitive bandwidth. Think of your brain like a phone. It has a finite amount of RAM. When you're worried about money, money worries are running in the background of every conversation, every decision, every thought. It doesn't matter if you're trying to focus on your job, your kids, or even what to eat for lunch. There's a process called being broke, eating up half your processing power before you've even started. This matters for everything that follows. Most personal finance advice assumes you're operating at full mental capacity. Budget, plan, invest, be disciplined. But if scarcity is taxing your brain, the reason you can't follow that advice isn't a moral failing, it's bandwidth. You don't have the spare cognitive room to execute on it. This is why willpower fails. This is why budgets collapse. This is why people who know better still buy the thing they shouldn't. The advice is correct. The brain processing it is just under-resourced. Section 2. The 4 hidden costs of the brain tax. Once you know the brain tax exists, you start seeing it everywhere. Here are the 4 biggest costs it's quietly extracting from you, even right now. Cost number 1, bad job decisions. When you're broke, you take whatever job is offered. You don't negotiate. You don't wait for a better fit. You don't pass on a position that's clearly wrong because the brain tax is whispering you can't afford to wait. The result is that you systematically end up in jobs that pay you less, demand more, and slow your earning trajectory by years. The brain tax doesn't just take points off your IQ. It takes years off your career. Cost number 2, loss of long-term thinking. Scarcity collapses time horizons. When the brain tax is active, you literally can't see in 5-year increments. You're stuck in this week thinking, will I make rent? Dominates everything. The actual research term for this is tunneling. Your mental field of view narrows until only the immediate problem is visible. Investments, retirement, career strategy, relationships, all of it sits outside the tunnel. You're not ignoring it. You can't perceive it from inside scarcity. Cost number 3, worse health decisions. This one is uncomfortable but proven. People paying the brain tax skip preventative care, eat worse, sleep less, and exercise less, not because they're lazy, but because health decisions all involve long-term thinking, and long-term thinking is exactly what scarcity disables. The brain tax compounds into a body tax. Cost number 4, compounding small losses. This is the cruelest one. When you're broke, every small loss costs you twice. The $40 overdraft fee isn't $40. It's $40 plus an hour of mental ruin, plus the cascade of worse decisions made under that mental load. Small problems become disasters because there's no mental room to absorb them. Wealth removes friction. Scarcity multiplies it. Section 3. Why $20,000 specifically? Now to the number itself. Why $20,000? Why not $1 million? Why not $5,000? Here's the answer, and it's almost embarrassing in its simplicity. For most people, $20,000 covers roughly 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. Not luxury, not vacations, just rent, utilities, food, transportation, basic life. 3 to 6 months of breathing room. The reason this number is the threshold isn't because of investment math, although that helps. It's because $20,000 is the amount where your nervous system stops broadcasting alerts. Below that, every text from your bank, every unexpected bill, every inconvenience hits the same panic button. Will I survive? Above that, the panic button gets disconnected. The brain tax goes quiet. Your full IQ comes back. There's even softer research backing this up. A Vanguard study found that having just $2,000 in emergency savings increases self-reported financial well-being by 21%. Pushing that buffer to 3 to 6 months of expenses adds another 13%. By the time you cross $20,000, you've reclaimed almost all the cognitive bandwidth scarcity was charging you. And then the second thing happens. The math finally joins the party. With $20,000 invested at a market average of around 8%, you're earning roughly $1,600 per year passively. That's modest, but it's the first time in your life your money is doing real work. Below $20,000, your investment returns feel like rounding errors. At $20,000, they start feeling like a second tiny job that pays you for doing nothing. The $20,000 milestone isn't important because it's a lot of money. It's important because it's the smallest amount of money that simultaneously ends the brain tax and makes your investments meaningful. It's the floor where psychology and math finally pull in the same direction. Section 4. The acceleration nobody warns you about. Here's the part that flips most people's understanding of saving. Getting to your first $20,000 is the hardest financial work you will ever do. Saving $1,000 a month at an 8% return takes about 19 months. A year and a half of discipline, sacrifice, and saying no while everyone around you says yes. It's brutal, but the second $20,000 doesn't take 19 months. It takes about 17. Same effort. 2 months shaved off. Why? because your first $20,000 is now also working, generating returns alongside your monthly contributions. By the third $20,000, the timeline is shorter again. By the time you have $100K invested, the math is working visibly on your behalf. By the time you have $400K, generating an additional $20,000 takes around 5 months, a quarter of what it took the first time, with the same monthly contribution. This is what people mean when they say the first 100 grand is the hardest. It's not motivational, it's mathematical. Compound interest is the only force in personal finance that gets easier the more you do it. The hardest version of this game is the version most people quit during. The brain tax is the reason most people quit during it. They give up exactly when the math is about to start helping them. Mullainathan and Shafir would say that's not a character flaw. That's a predictable consequence of trying to run a marathon while paying a cognitive surcharge. Your actual smart self, untaxed, would absolutely finish. Your taxed self can't. So the entire trick is get past the tax fast with as little drama as possible. Section 5. What changes the day the tax stops? I want to talk about what actually happens to a person on the day they cross $20,000. Not theoretically, practically. Your job changes, even though you didn't change jobs. What people call walking away money is real, and it's the largest psychological shift money can produce. When you have 6 months of expenses saved, you stop being someone your employer is doing a favor by employing. You become someone who could leave at any moment. They don't know that you have it. You don't have to tell them. But your posture changes. Your voice in meetings changes. The way you negotiate raises changes. What they really start paying you for is the option to leave that you've quietly purchased for yourself. Your relationships change, not because they should, because they do. People with no buffer often stay in bad relationships, bad friendships, and bad family dynamics because exit is too expensive. With $20,000, exit becomes affordable. You don't have to leave anything, but knowing you could changes which relationships get to keep you. Your decisions get smaller, by which I mean less dramatic. People in scarcity make swing for the fences decisions, because small bets feel pointless when you're already drowning. People pass the brain tax, make boring, repeatable, modestly sized decisions because they know small bets compound. The shift from gambling to compounding is one of the most important transitions in any financial life, and it happens around this exact threshold. You stop arguing with yourself about coffee. This sounds small, but it's enormous. People paying the brain tax obsessively litigate $4 decisions while ignoring $40,000 ones. People past the threshold stop sweating the latte and start scrutinizing the housing cost, the job offer, the investment account, the tax setup. The decisions that actually move your net worth get the bandwidth they deserve. And the one almost nobody warns you about, opportunities start showing up, not because the world changed, because you can finally see them. The brain tax doesn't just steal your IQ, it steals your peripheral vision. Past the threshold, you start noticing things you've been blind to your whole life. The small business someone's quietly selling, the side gig nobody's filled, the niche the market hasn't priced in. These were always there. You just couldn't see them through the scarcity tunnel. Section 6. The 5 mistakes that keep people stuck below the line. Most people who set out to cross this threshold never make it. The tax beats them before the math gets a chance. Here are the 5 mistakes that quietly do most of the damage. Mistake number 1. Trying to budget your way there. You can't out-discipline scarcity. Your brain is being taxed, and willpower is one of the things being taxed first. The way out isn't tighter spreadsheets. The way out is automation, taking the decision out of your taxed brain. Set up an automatic transfer the day your paycheck hits. Move it to an account you don't see. Make the saving a default. not a decision. Mistake number 2, treating it like a goal instead of a system. A goal of save 20,000 will fail. A system of X transfers automatically every 2 weeks will succeed. Goals require ongoing willpower, which the brain tax is already eating. Systems run regardless of how taxed your brain is on a given Tuesday. Mistake number 3, touching it. You will be tempted. A car will need repairs. A trip will look amazing. A friend will need help. Some of these are real. Most are the brain tax in disguise, talking you out of long-term thinking. Make a rule. This account is not a checking account. This account does not exist for normal life. This account exists for the version of me who is past the threshold. Don't betray that person. Mistake number 4, treating $20,000 as a finish line. The day you hit it isn't the end of saving. It's the beginning of investing. The biggest mistake people make is treating the milestone as a reward, buying a car, taking the trip, paying off the credit card with the money they were supposed to invest. $20K isn't a reward, it's a launch pad. Anyone who treats it as a reward goes back to zero and pays the brain tax all over again. Mistake number 5, cutting contributions when you cross it. The moment your first $20,000 is invested, your monthly contributions matter more, not less, because now they're stacking on top of money that's already growing. Cutting contributions when you hit the milestone is the financial equivalent of shutting off a rocket's engines the moment it leaves the atmosphere. You haven't escaped gravity yet. You're just light enough that the engines work better. Keep them on. There's one specific spending decision that does more to keep people below the threshold than anything else, and it deserves its own section. The average person spends more money over a lifetime on cars than it would take them to achieve full financial independence. Let me say that again. Between car payments, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and depreciation, most people are spending $700 to $900 every single month on transportation. Over 40 years, that's roughly $400,000 to $500,000, money that, invested instead, would have made them genuinely wealthy. The kicker, a new car loses about 20% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. So you're not just spending money, you're actively destroying it. The framing that helps here is opportunity cost. That $30,000 car isn't $30,000. That's $30,000 that could have grown into roughly $200,000 in 20 years. Once you start running purchases through that filter, half the things you thought you wanted lose their grip on you. You don't actually want a new car. You want it to feel a certain way. There are cheaper ways to feel that way. And there's a far better way to feel, financial peace, that the new car is actively preventing. The quiet wealthy drive Camrys for a reason. They figured this out. So the most important thing to understand about your money, about the difference between people who slowly build wealth and people who spend their lives waiting for a windfall, is that this isn't a character difference, it's a tax difference. Below the threshold, you're paying a cognitive tax on every financial decision you make. Above it, the tax stops, your IQ comes back, your peripheral vision returns, and the math finally starts working in your favor. The line between those two states is roughly $20,000. That's it. That's the whole game. The hardest 19 months of your life will get you there. After that, the work you've done starts doing the work for you. And every smart concept you've ever heard of, investing, compounding, optionality, walking away money, starts becoming actually available to you because there's finally a brain in your head that has the bandwidth to use it. You're not bad with money. You're being taxed. Get past the line. If this changed how you're thinking about your savings, hit subscribe. I make a video like this every week, pulling apart the actual research behind money psychology. instead of repeating what every other finance channel says. And one question for the comments. Where are you on the threshold right now? Below it, on it, or past it? No judgment. Genuinely curious how the room breaks down. Drop your honest answer below.